Greetings, everyone. It's great to be back as I share my journey with technology. My history with technology goes way back, a lot further than most of you, and I can remember back to our beautiful black and white TV that we would all sit around at night and watch, and how exciting it was when the remote control was developed, and we no longer had to get up and change the channel for our dad. Of course, our television watching centered around black and white programming, and I watched as these programs were being developed. I didn't watch them in reruns. One of the most important technological things that happened in my early life was the moon landing, the first moon landing, and I can vividly remember watching it on the black and white TV with my family as we took the first step on the moon. Of course, that moon landing caused lots and lots of amazing technological changes. One of the things was the satellites that were put into space and the opportunity we had for watching worldwide TV. Aloha from Hawaii, Elvis Presley. I remember watching that with my dad and him being so excited that this was opening the way for us to be able to tell the world about Jesus. Of course, technology means communication. I grew up using the old rotary phone that eventually became cute. We got pink ones, we got blue ones. Eventually they moved into mobile cell phones. My first cell phone looked about like this. It was about that size, and I can remember carrying it into my classroom, and I was the only teacher on campus that had a cell phone or had any phone in my classroom. Eventually, I owned all of these different phones and many, many others that I can't even remember, but I got the original iPhone in 2007 and never looked back. One of the pieces of technology that really transformed my life was the Palm Pilot. I got the original Palm Pilot and immediately started entering everything in my life. It was so great, I didn't have to carry around my huge day planner any longer. Eventually, I made it to this beautiful, beautiful color screen. I was so excited. And then I combined my cell phone with my Palm Pilot, and all was right with the world. Of course, print and writing is a huge part of communication. I learned how to type back in my sixth grade year, and the typewriter I learned on looked a lot like this one. I can remember in college being so excited to have a portable typewriter that looked about like that. Eventually, we moved away from having the bars that came up, and we got the Selectric. So exciting that you could actually stop in the middle and change out the Selectric balls that had different font types, and that was how we were able to make our publications look somewhat professional. And I know it probably sounds silly, but this transformed my life. Back before we had lift-off correction tape, we had to type all of our things in triplicate, duplicate using this ink paper between papers, and we'd end up with these little thin things that were copies. Let me tell you, if you made a mistake typing, you'd have to start the whole thing over again. So that liftoff tape was a transformational moment in my life. My college career and my first master's degree, I spent many, many hours in the library. When I saw this picture, I thought that could have been me, because this was how we did research. This was how we spent our time as we tried to write our papers. And we would sit there at the card catalog. We'd have a pencil and paper in hand, and we'd write down what we read on the card so that we could go into the library and find the book. And let me tell you, there was no such thing as any distance learning. You had to be in the library. I can remember that in my master's degree, we had to write book reviews every week. So you'd read your book, you'd write the review, but then you'd have to type it up, take it over to the library, turn it into the librarian, and she would keep all of the papers behind the counter. And you would ask to read two of your classmates' papers, and then you had to comment on them. So that was how we did our discussion forums. You had to actually go to the library, get the paper, sit in the library, read the paper, write your review, and then bring that to class with you. So finally, I got my first computer. It was in the early 1980s. It was a Gavilan. I used every single form of storage, from the big, huge floppies down to the newer ones that we thought were so great, these little tiny ones. I read DOS for Dummies in the 1980s in order to be able to use that old Gavilan computer. I thought it was awesome. But let me tell you, when we got the little mouse that helped us move around the screen, and then we got Windows, it transformed everything. Then came the internet, and on the internet I used Netscape, I used AOL, I used every browser there was as I began to learn more and more about computers and how they work. I loved AOL because AOL had these little groups that you could join, and they had a teacher group that I used to go online and look at all the time to get ideas for my classroom. Audio visual equipment's also very important, and this is what I grew up using, is these reel-to-reels. When I finally went to cassette tape, that was amazing. My very first camcorder looked about like that one. I got it when my first child was born, and carrying that thing around trying to videotape was very interesting. And finally, I think the biggest change to my learning with technology has been the ability to read books online. I have a Kindle, the original Kindle that I got. I read lots of books online, and now with my iPad I can read, and I can also annotate, and so I can write on what I'm reading. And that has really changed how I am using technology. So that's just a little 7-minute journey on technology with me. Good night.